Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's Crush It in Sales podcast. I'm your host, Melinda Van Fleet, and I'm a sales, strategy, and success coach. And thank you in advance for listening. This week, I'm going to kick off a series on what I'm going to call time management tips or time management factors. And I'm actually even going to switch around the words time management to time maximization, which is something I recently heard with Southwestern Coaching and Consulting, which I am now proudly a part of. And if you would like to reach out to me to learn more about Southwestern, whether it's a complimentary and customized workshop for your sales team or one-on-one coaching either with me or one of our other 140 fabulous coaches worldwide, please do. And I'm putting this at the beginning of the podcast because sometimes people don't listen all the way to the end of the podcast. So there you go, putting my plug in now. So I will put my information in the show notes. So today's topic in regards to time maximization is complacency. I even have a hard time saying that word, complacency. Yep. And the reason why I have a hard time saying that word is because that word is actually kind of new to me. I have never had that word in my vocabulary before, and my husband certainly does not have that word in his vocabulary. But I feel like it is actually becoming an epidemic. And some people are using that word to describe why they may need coaching. Or some people are avoiding the fact they may benefit from coaching because they are complacent. And some people are even just kind of realizing it and they're just still not taking action. It goes into that bucket of, I know I should be doing this, but, which I keep hearing from people too. And if you're one of those people and you happen to listen to this podcast, please don't take it personally that I'm talking about this because honestly, it is an epidemic. You're one of many. It's so common for me to get this vibe after I talk to somebody that I'm just like, oh my gosh, I have to start talking about it. Did it happen more relevantly with COVID? Maybe. Maybe with people losing their jobs or getting pay cuts, they've realized they could live on less and they're fine with that. Is that one of the outcomes of COVID? Yeah, it could be. It very well could be. But how long can that last for you? Can that last forever? I don't know. Maybe if you're like 85, sure. But if you're 40, if you're 50, if you're 55, if you're 60, if you're even 70, I feel like you have a lot of life to live. Is being complacent really where you want to be? It's very fascinating. You can be complacent in your business, in your relationships with people. Yeah, with people. You can have like narcissistic friends and be still dealing with them. There's narcissistic friends on Facebook, let's face it. And you're like, don't really like this person's vibe or energy, but, I hate to block them. We're kind of friends. Yeah, that can happen. And with your health. I mean, when I think back about my weight release journey, which I started during COVID, July 6, 2020 was the day I started with a program. And I have kept the weight off. And when I think back to prior to that, I was complacent. I was, even though I wasn't familiar with the word, when I think back about it, yeah, I was complacent. I was just in my brain saying, well, as long as my clothes still fit me, that's what I was saying into myself in my brain. What are you saying in your brain? Take a look in the mirror. Think about it. What are you saying in your brain? And I'm not just talking health and weight here. I'm talking like everything. Take a look in the mirror and what are you saying in your brain? Where are you complacent? I was so complacent. And now I look back at pictures. I'm like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Really? Really? Complacent. So I took some time with my friend Google and I wanted to see like what pops up when I Google this word. And what was funny and first triggered me was that a lot of the definitions around the word complacent is smug. And I think smug is really like negative. Oh, I don't really like that word when I first saw it. I was like, smug. Oh, because I don't think of people being smug. Like, I just, oh, that just didn't sound right to me. I don't like to believe in that in people. But when I start to think back on some of these conversations with some people, that, yeah, it kind of had a smug vibe. So I really did some work in thinking about this. I'm like, yeah, that person, yeah, I guess you could say they were kind of smug. This doesn't mean I didn't like them or didn't like respect them, but yeah, they kind of had like a little bit of a smug vibe. So I started like thinking about it deeper, and I started Googling, and another word that comes up is comfortable. And yep, that would be how I felt about my weight. I was just comfortable. I wasn't super comfortable when I would go into a store and be like, nope, I can't wear sleeveless. No, I can't wear a dress. No, I can't wear jeans, because, those items of clothing, those types of clothing just never looked good on my body type because I was fluffier. So comfortable. And that's the same thing. Like if you took a pay cut and you still figured out how to make it happen, you might just be comfortable. So that goes into complacency. And then I started thinking about too, like guilt. Like if I were to be complacent, my guilt, because I love to work and I thrive off of progress and I thrive off of having a really productive, active day, my guilt would start to eat at me that I wasn't being productive enough. Like if I sat around and watched Netflix all day, if I binged Netflix, which I have never ever done, I would be so guilty. Like that guilt would just eat at me. I would be like, oh my God, I just wasted a whole day watching Netflix. That doesn't mean I don't watch Netflix. It just means I just don't sit a whole day and binge it. I'm still not done with Bridgerton season 2. And I like that show. So, where do you fall into that? And that's why I wanted to create this podcast and then this podcast series on all these different like time maximization thought processes, because I challenge you to look at, where are you? And maybe you are complacent. Maybe you work for an insurance agency or you are a real estate agent and you just get referrals and you're like, yep, I get referrals. I'm just totally fine with that. I don't feel like working harder. I enjoy my life. And on one aspect, that's great. Kudos to you. I do not believe that you have to hustle so hard that you have back problems, because let's face it, unless you were in a car accident, your back problems are from stress. Or you have eye twitch like I used to have when I worked for Target. But think about, could you work a little harder? Could you work on building a pipeline so you have a plan B? Maybe you don't want to do what you're doing for the rest of your life. So maybe you're trying to become an entrepreneur or do something different. Well, you need to know that moving in that direction takes a couple years to figure that out, to figure out some momentum, to figure out your marketing, your niche, whatever you need to do, save money, like that takes a couple years. So being complacent now is something you need to look at. Like, what does that mean for you? And then also, if you are someone who's been happily living on natural referrals that come to you, like, have you thought about like what happens when that well dries up? I mean, let's be real. People move. If you're in real estate, you could have a couple people move out of the country to Arizona. Who knows, right? If you have an older client base, I hate to say it, but yeah, people die. I remember when I was a sales rep, a lot of stores that I was working with had an older based clientele. And over the years, they would be like, yeah, Mrs. Smith, she was a great customer. She'd come in and spend like $2,000 buying gifts for her grandkids. Well, she just died. Yep, people die. Hate to say it, but it's just true. And then you have people that, for financial reasons, can't spend that amount of money anymore, right? And then the worst one where you really should be kicking yourself, is if they just go somewhere else. if they just go somewhere else? I mean, we have to look at that always with our charter business, Good Karma Sport Fishing. If Ryan can't take someone, they may go somewhere else. And what if they like that other captain better than Ryan, right? That could happen. That could happen. And that could happen with anything. Even when I look at the Keys, when we moved down here, I chuckled because I would go to a networking event and people, the women, were either worked for a bank, were a real estate agent, or a captain's wife, right? And so in that, there are a gazillion real estate agents in the Keys and all over, really, all over. I mean, Naples, crazy the amount of real estate agents. So are you complacent and you're living off of your 5 referral clients, or are you hungry? Are you hungry? I can see it online. I can see some new agents, whether they're insurance agents or real estate agents, that have popped up, that they're hungry. They're doing an awesome job marketing and they have creative ideas and they're really out there. Like, how hungry are you? Or are you just going to kind of kick back for a few more years until your well is completely dry? And then you're like, oh shit, maybe I should have started working on this a couple years ago. So these are all things to think about. And if I've triggered you to take action, kudos. That's what this podcast is for. Or even just take a little bit of action, because all you need to do is take one small step every day, and all those steps compound. All of those steps compound. So again, it doesn't mean you need to hustle and like put yourself in a cardiac arrest. Just take a small step. Make one new phone call. Attend one new networking meeting. Look for one new way to advertise. Sit and journal and think of other ways to expand your sphere. What can you do that may be a little bit uncomfortable? You may have to push through some fear, but you're going to stop being so complacent. Because complacency can definitely be a time waster. So I'm going to share just 3 tips for you. The first one is recognize it. As I talked about, take a look in the mirror. Take a look in the mirror and really be like, okay, yeah, I've been complacent. I'm an insurance agent that sits back and waits for LinkedIn things to come through to me. And then I follow up. Maybe, maybe not, depending on how I feel. Well, you know what? What if the owner of that insurance agency changes direction? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Think about it. What are you going to do? And then sit and be like, how do I feel? And be like, yeah, okay. Yep, Melinda, I'm totally fine with this. I'm just going to ride this out as long as I can. Well, kudos. This podcast is probably not for you. Totally fine. But at least you've built some awareness around it. And then if you are someone who's like, you know what? I do need to step outside of my comfort zone. I do need to put a plan together. I need to get some ideas together. I need accountability. I need to work with a one-on-one coach. I need to do something to change this up. Take action on that. Take action. And again, one small step every day is going to compound. I promise you, it's going to compound. So thank you for listening to this podcast. If you would like to connect with me, I'll just give you my personal email, melinda@melindavanfleet.com. You can Google me. You can connect on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, or Instagram. And until next week, I hope you crush it in sales. Thanks for listening.